Have you ever wondered what it would be like to quit your job so you can pursue your passions and make a living doing things you actually enjoy? I used to be there too, except I didn't have a chance to quit. Change found me first, and I had to find a way to make money after losing my income, my medical insurance, my sense of stability, all while having a brand new 5-month-old baby at home. If you're interested in joining me on this journey and hearing about the different ways I've managed to stay afloat after losing my job and having to make ends meet as a single mother, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Let's not forget, the ultimate goal is not surviving, it's thriving. So in this video, I'm going to break down all of my startup costs for launching my micro bakery, a business that I started after getting laid off back in March. It was one of those situations where I had to figure out something with exactly what I had. For me, that was a small amount of savings, some experience baking for fun throughout the years, and a big kitchen space. With childcare averaging $250 a week, it just made sense to start something that I could do and sell from home. If you find this video informative or at the very least encouraging, maybe it'll inspire you to finally take that leap and start the business that you've been thinking about. My bakery offers 10 different menu items. After a lot of research, I decided to narrow it down to just these simple items. And most of the budget that I'm going to break down for you actually went into making sure that I could just produce these items efficiently. I didn't include grocery items in my budget breakdown since these costs can vary depending on your menu, if you're buying in bulk, where you are located, and other factors. My menu includes cakes, mini cakes, dessert shooters, cake bars, cake pucks, and more. So let's start from the very beginning. I'm going to walk you through every single one and exactly what I had to buy for each. And honestly, I started from absolute zero. I had nothing after my divorce. I was the one to leave the house and leave all my things behind. So I hope you enjoy this video and let's get started. So the first thing that I had to buy in order to bake were the cake pans. I bought 2 of them at about $13 each. And I also picked up this super awesome revolving cake turntable to decorate. The set that I bought was awesome for beginners because it came with the scrapers, the piping bags, the piping tips, and basically everything I needed to start decorating. By the way, I am using screenshots and pictures from my website. Hopefully you find that helpful. I got the measuring cups for $16 and those were super awesome. I had initially bought the 4 cup, which is the largest, but it didn't have the half cup measure, so I just decided to downsize. I also got a hand mixer. I bought a Hamilton Beach for $33. It had great reviews and it has worked really well for me so far. Plus it's baby blue, which I've been obsessed with lately for like no reason. I grabbed a couple of silicone brushes for $4 to spread nonstick agents like butter or homemade pan release on my pans. And to store dry ingredients like sugar, flour, cookies, I bought airtight containers for $25. I didn't want anything going stale between orders. I also bought gloves for $13 and a food scale for about $10 just so I could get all my recipes down to a science. I do weigh everything including the batter in each pan and mini pan just to make sure that everything bakes evenly. Also, early in my journey, I did spend over $100 on recipes from a YouTuber who sells mini cake recipes and her whole content revolves around mini cakes. And while I'm totally in support of paying for recipes, I believe these bakers put in a lot of time in perfecting their craft and it's a respectable thing to do. I just didn't end up using these recipes, so I didn't include that in my total final budget. Instead, I found free recipes from another YouTuber who had tons of views, great comments, and really helpful blog content, and they turned out amazing. The paid recipes just didn't work for me, and I still don't know what I was doing wrong. It didn't help that there were no video tutorials, so yeah, mine just came out wonky. I don't know, maybe it's a me problem. But the next purchase that I made was a KitchenAid mixer, and this was probably the biggest purchase that I had to make. These mixers usually go for $450, $350 if it's on sale, and then plus tax, it's another $30 to $40-ish, $50. Not sure, I can't mental math right now. But I got mine for $180. I highly recommend checking platforms like Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp before buying retail. Then for my mini cakes, I did buy this 200 count variety pack for $47, mainly so I could show different color options on my website. I didn't need that many, but I knew at some point I would end up using them, and I did use some for baking and some for display, so it was a good investment for me. Also, originally, I tried crushing Oreos in a cheap blender, for my cookies and cream cakes and my cookies and cream cheesecake, but it just didn't work. I upgraded to a KitchenAid food processor, that was on sale for $45 with an Amazon payment plan, and it's been perfect. I also bought a box of clear spoons for my mini cake pans because the variety pack that I had bought didn't come with any. So now moving on to my dessert shooters. My menu includes cheesecake shooters in 4 flavors: cookie butter, vanilla wafer, cookies and cream, and strawberry. I also make Mexican rice pudding shooters and strawberries and cream shooters. And for all of those, I just needed to buy the cups. So I got 100 for $28, and that was it. Easy peasy. So now moving on to my cake pucks and my cake bars. For packaging, I did do a lot of experimenting. I initially bought the wrong size bags and boxes and had to go back to Kohl's to return my items until ultimately I ended up with the perfect sizing for everything. So I ended up buying my bags for $10, the 4x6 and the 3.5 by 3.5 also for $10. I did buy the smaller boxes for $20, and there's 150 in there. You don't necessarily have to buy as many as I did. I did choose to buy in bulk for this particular item. It was just significantly cheaper. But if you're starting out, you can just order things as needed. Amazon Prime has been so awesome when it comes to fast delivery. I get stuff in like 2 days. So since I do ask for a 2-week notice from customers, ordering as you go totally works as well. For molds, I just use basic silicone molds, and I use the same technique that you would for cakesicles. So I do a couple of coats of chocolate, then I press in the cake crumbs with the frosting mixture before covering in chocolate. So no fancy equipment needed. Now for my strawberries, I just bought mini cupcake liners for $1 at Walmart, and I got my 60 boxes from Amazon for $26, and that was basically it. So for my labeling and branding, I do upsell by offering custom labels, and I knew I was gonna spend a little bit more on this, and this part is totally optional, but this is what I ended up spending. For the printer, I spent $63, the label maker was $38, the paper cutter was $12, and the hole punch was $10. Because I knew I was going to need round labels, and I was not about to sit there and try to make perfect circles with a pair of scissors. I did use Canva's free trial to design everything, and now I pay $15 a month, which is totally worth it for me. And I also bought a thermal printer for $76 in the beginning, but I barely use it. Honestly, I'd skip this step if I were starting over. I built my website using Hostinger for $168. I think I'm saying that right. But it was $168 for 4 years, and I used a discount code from another YouTuber, so always check for those. That's also how I got my cake recipes for like 35% off, thankfully. I would have been devastated to lose more money on that. But I also got my Vistaprint 500 business cards for $47. I also used a code for that I found on their website. And this might be a little bit extra and totally unnecessary, but I did buy a used iPhone 13. I think it's a Pro Max or something. It cost me $300, and I used this to take the photos for my menu. My iPhone 11 just wasn't cutting it. I know nothing about photography, and so the iPhone 13 camera made a huge difference in the photo qualities. I just basically let it do all the work for me since it's, more sophisticated as opposed to my iPhone 11, where everything looks kind of pixelated. And it was just a good investment for me since I'm still using it regularly. Registering an LLC in my state cost $50, and I also joined my state's cottage food program, which was totally free. That was a grand total of $1,357, not including the groceries. I do estimate that I spent an additional maybe $200 making everything on my menu for the photos, bringing the total to about $1,557. Honestly, the most expensive part wasn't what cost me money. It was the time that it took. Ultimately time is money, and it took me a lot of time to test and perfect the recipes, to make everything on the menu, to learn how to create a website, to figure out the packaging situation for everything, to learn how to design on Canva, which is something I had never done, to get the perfect photos, to learn basically through trial and error in every aspect and every category. that you can imagine when it comes to baking. But honestly, I'm so glad that I did all of this learning before getting real orders, because trying to figure out all of that while fulfilling orders would have been so stressful and chaotic, and I probably would have given up before I even started. So that was it. I really hope that this was somehow helpful to you or encouraging, and thank you guys for watching.